think if Penn State tried to challenge any sanctions that were going to be imposed by the NCAA, it wouldn't have resulted in being absolved of any wrongdoing whatsoever. I think it's quite clear based on their FRIA report that there was wrongdoing and that certain disciplinary action needed to be taken. Of course, it was unprecedented with regard to the NCAA not necessarily following its custom bylaws in order to implement that type of decision, where there was no real due process with regard to making sure that a full investigation was done and there was an actual hearing. But if Penn State actually were to try to fight this, I think it would have been a long, drawn-out process, even more than it already is, and more attention would have been directed towards the school. So I think in that regard, they probably weighed the benefits and the drawbacks of pursuing an actual fight against these sanctions. This is a very unique case where there is actual sanctions by the NCAA based on criminal behavior of the school that had no impact on the actual student athletes, nor did it have any effect on the competitive balance amongst the schools, which is generally the primary responsibility of the NCAA. Because of that, it didn't follow its normal bylaws or its processes. So in that regard, if similar situations were to occur that don't necessarily affect what goes on the field or on the court, the NCAA might be able to take swift action without going through those general processes it has in the past. I think there will be substantial damages beyond just what has already come about, especially from the NCAA as well as the potential claimants. I do believe, though, that to the extent there are any civil lawsuits by Sandusky victims, those claims will probably be settled. And once those claims are settled, there'll be a settlement agreement. Now, to the extent that we're going to find out the terms of those settlements as well as the settlement amounts, there's going to be a balance of interest between the victim's privacy as well as the fact that that settlement agreement is arguably a public record that might want to be sought out by the media. I believe the revenue-generating sport like football, when it's adversely affected by these sanctions by the NCAA, will definitely have a material effect on the, quote, secondary or non-revenue generating sports at the university. A lot of these other sports, rely on the resources that are available because of the revenue-generating sports. So I think they would certainly be adversely affected with regard to scholarship money available, facilities, travel accommodation. There's a lot of different moving parts that certainly would be adversely affected that really hasn't got as much attention. Most don't really recognize the impact of these sanctions against Penn State. Certain season ticket holders might claim that they want to have a rescission of that particular season ticket package, claiming there's some sort of fraud or not getting the true benefit of the bargain of a Penn State football game. On the employment side, certain administrators and faculty of Penn State who were dismissed in connection with this scandal might claim that they were dismissed from the school too abruptly. For example, they might claim that their due process rights might have been in violation, as Penn State is a public university, thus certain constitutional rules apply. I know others have speculated that this is tantamount to a death penalty for Penn State. Personally, I believe with the tradition that Penn State has garnered over the years, the strong alumni, the strong student base, strong boosters, that I think they will be able to recover in the long term compared to other schools that have had not necessarily this same severity of sanctions, but have incurred similar types of fines or certain types of losses of scholarships. It's often said in sports, fans root for laundry as opposed to individual players, and so long as those helmets and jerseys are on the field, I think there's certainly going to be a strong following for Penn State football. So as devastating as the sanctions have been, I would be shocked if Penn State, wasn't competitive at least within 5 to 10 years.